Hey everybody! So after that really stupid and long video, I felt like doing something that wouldn't take me 100 hours to make. And then I thought of ranking every current Gen 9 OU Pokemon. I mean, there's only like 40 of them, compared to 1216, so you know, pretty manageable. Then I actually thought about it for 2 more seconds and was like, oh, I actually have to say stuff about this Pokemon. I can't just make a stupid one-liner and then move on. Oh well, too late, I already made the list. So yeah, a small disclaimer before I get onto it. I began writing this video before the April tier changes, when 2 Pokemon rose to OU and 3 fell down to UU, and another guy got banned to Ubers even. But I had already written their entries and I still want to talk about them. So even though currently there are only 36 OU Pokemon, the list is 41 entries long, because I included those that aren't OU anymore, and I also included another guy that hasn't been OU for a long time, but I love him anyway and just had to talk about him. Second disclaimer, while I like competitive, I'm not actually great at it. The furthest I made it in the past was like 1670 elo, and then quickly lost it all when I was having a bad day, and lost like 7 battles in a row. And because of that, this isn't a ranking based on how viable or useful these Pokemon are. There's plenty of people who are better at the game already doing that. Hell, just type Smogon OU viability rankings and boom, there they are. Instead, this is just my opinion of how fun it is to play with this and against these Pokemons in Scarlet and Violet overused. A metagame that, while not perfect and sort of unbalanced, is also pretty fun, given its fast-paced nature, especially compared to the slow, boring trash fire that Gen 8 OU was. So yeah, take everything I say with a grain of salt, especially if you're actually good at competitive Pokemon. Alright, let's get on to it with F tier and number 41.
First we mine, then we craft. Let's Minecraft!
Oh, Garganacl, you Minecraft-looking bitch, how I hate you. You know how physically defensive rock types tend to be terrible in competitive? So in that sense, Garganacl is kind of interesting, because he also is a physically defensive rock type, but he actually doesn't suck. Except Garganacl is actually awful to play against, because they gave him everything. First of all, he doesn't really quite fit into this archetype of bad rock type, because he is super min-maxed. His special attack and speed are basically non-existent, but that's fine because they don't matter, and the other 4 stats that do matter are either great or solid enough. The most egregious one is his 90 special defense, that's like really good for a physical wall. Even Gliscor, another notable physical wall, only has 75 special defense, and even then he's decent enough at taking special hits if they aren't super effective. Then we have Garganacl's ability, Purifying Salt, which blocks all status, one of the main ways of dealing with bulky, stolly Pokemon. And if that wasn't broken enough, it also gains a resistance to Ghost. Why? Because why the fuck not, basically. Then you look at his move pool, which is pretty solid all around, but honestly, I have to admit, nothing out of this world. You know, maybe I overstated how good it actually is. Oh, is that fucking recover? Sure, let's give the Salt Formation reliable healing, because why not? You could argue that all of this is balanced by the fact that he is a rock type, and yes, admittedly, Mono Rock sucks complete as defensively. But Gen 9 OU has Terra, and if there's a Pokemon who loves to terrestrialize, it's this little bitch. But you know what? Fine. That's kind of what you need to succeed in this insanely power-cut metagame as a whole. So I guess maybe giving all of these advantages was warranted. Except not really, because I haven't even talked about Salt Cure. I hate this move, it is so stupid. You know how with Toxic, the usual pressure tool Stolly Pokemon tend to have, there's very clear counterplay? Yeah, a Steel or a Poison type. Pretty straightforward. Well, there's no real counterplay to Salt Cure, so have fun taking an eighth of your health every turn, and if you try to switch out, he'll just apply it to the next Pokemon. And unlike other similar cheap damage effects like Magmar Storm or Infestation, it doesn't go away if Garganacl switches. And let's give it bonus damage against Steel and Water types, because why the fuck not, you know? God, how I hate this little bitch. Garganacl adds nothing to the metagame, I hate using it, I particularly hate seeing it on the other team, and his design is so ugly. Just look at him! That was the only F tier. There's other Pokemon in this metagame I don't really like, but really nothing quite like Garganacl. We now move on to D tier, with number 40, Blissey. Blissey is just a really boring Pokemon. It is just a pink blob of stats, there's nothing interesting about playing with it. That being said, I do appreciate its existence somewhat. I think it's good there's a little bit of counterplay to special attackers. That being said, I really wish it did more than just take hits and heal. Blissey is painfully passive and slow as a wall, and it just feels super unsatisfying to use. That is especially true nowadays that so many of its best, more interesting tools, such as Wish and Toxic, were cut from her move pool. And yeah, those moves make her more annoying to deal with, but at least she did something. In Gen 9, Blissey just sits there, taking special hits. Very boring Pokemon. I'll be honest, I may be letting my opinion on this guy as a design influence my opinion of them in competitive. I just don't like the fact that this stupid ass fish is overused. That being said, Alomomola is another one that is just kinda boring. I do like using it more than Blissey, it's a little bit more proactive with its access to some good status inflicting moves such as Scald and Flip Turn for pivoting, but at the same time I just hate playing against it. Alomomola isn't broken by any means, its stats are too low for that, but it also doesn't have a very clear and obvious targetable weakness like Blissey, and that is all because of its access to Regenerator. It becomes this unbearable pivot that lives forever, even though it shouldn't, because look at how stupid it is. Just his name is one of the stupidest things in this game. I mean, just look! It really is that pesky Regenerator ability that makes me dislike Alomomola so much. To me, there are other defensive pivots in the metagame that I both enjoy using much more and also enjoy facing much more, because they feel much more targetable.
Poison, the poison for Cusco, the poison chosen specially to kill Cusco, Cusco's poison.
A common strategy in competitive Pokemon is that of the suicide lead. Your lead Pokemon only has one job: set hazards and then fucking die. One of the suicide leads I dislike the most is Glimmora. But why? It sounds pretty good. It has Stealth Rock and its ability allows it to set toxic spikes when hit by a physical move. But to me, there's things that just make it not work well in this role. It's awful typing and the just below average speed. Let's start with the typing. Glimmora is 4 times weak to ground, weak to water, and less relevant, weak to steel and psychic, with not a lot of useful resistances. These weaknesses just make it super targetable, and I know that's why it usually runs a Focus Sash to guarantee at least one move, but Glimmora just matches terribly into some of the more prominent hazard removers of the format. Both Great Tusk and Iron Trest destroy its lead game plan, as they both outspeed, can take it down to its sash, and then KO with Rapid Spin, removing all the hazards. But well then, in that case, set your Stealth Rock and then switch out to a Ghost type to block the Rapid Spin. And yeah, you can do that, but then you have a Pokemon with only 1 health left, which at that point the best it can hope to be is a sack, because it is not fast enough to maybe come in later and throw one last powerful attack. And what about hazard removers that come in later, like Corviknight and Cinderace? Well, Cinderace uses Boots, and Corviknight just ignores your toxic spikes. And yeah, there's Gholdengo to block most hazard removals, but there are much more valuable hazard setters. That's in part because I think the Suicide lead doesn't fit this metagame very well, but even then I just think there are better ones, for example Deoxys Speed, who can be much more threatening. But Glimmora has other sets, right? Mainly that Power Herb Meteor Beam combo. With its massive special attack and Slash Wave and Earth Power for coverage, it can actually hit pretty hard. But once again, that just below average speed makes it really unsatisfying to use and to actually pose much of a threat. Beyond the surprise factor, I don't see much value in this set either. I do prefer it over the Hazard lead though.
Okay, now that those liberals are efficiently owned, I do want to leave with one last point. The greatest American value is Vor.
Fuck this guy. Okay, fine, I'll explain. Dondozo has the incredible defensive ability Unaware. Let's look at some other prominent Unaware Pokemon. Clefable, Godsire, Skeledirge, Quagsire. Let's look at their stats. Yeah, they are mostly defensive, good synergy with the ability, but they all feel pretty reasonable. I bet they also balance Dondozo in the same way. What the actual fuck? Okay, so you can see my problem. Dondozo just feels ridiculously overtuned. And I'm not saying he's unbalanced, because I don't think he is. With no healing except for rest, a limited move pool and a weak special defense, you can deal with this guy. He's not unbeatable. But I don't know man, that defensive profile feels a little bit too much, and it makes this guy extremely annoying to deal with. So yeah, he is annoying to face, but also because of its simple move pool and pretty one-dimensional strategy, he is also really boring to play with. Not necessarily an unhealthy presence on the metagame, just a really uninteresting one. So what even is Petulant Purpose? Someone who's better at the game than me, could you please explain it to me? Okay, no, I do actually get it. It's a physical wall, with good healing in Recover, a typing that provides a lot of valuable resistances, and a form of applying toxic poison that is more aggressive and disruptive than usual. Okay, that's cool I suppose, It's also a really awkward and unsatisfying Pokemon to use. It really has to do with its very bizarre stat spread, 88 in everything and a whooping 116 defense. It doesn't hit badly, but it doesn't hit very well either. It doesn't take special hits badly, but also doesn't take them very well either. It can outspeed some enemies, but not a lot honestly. Yeah, I just don't love using Petarant. I found it really hard to get a lot of consistent value with it, especially since the combo of its ability and signature move is basically, let's go gambling. And in that same way, it's kind of annoying to face, because once again, it feels like gambling.
What's the most you ever lost on a coin toss?
So far, you'll be thinking I solely dislike defensive Pokemon. And while I do have to admit that my 10-year-old brain prefers using offensive Pokemon and clicking big damage moves, my disgust isn't reserved just for defensive mons. That's why at number 33 we have Kingambit. Yeah, this dude sucks. At this point, the metagame has been formed around him to the point that there's quite a bit of counterplay, but with that being said, what Kingambit does should be considered a fucking travesty. Like for real, it shouldn't be acceptable for a Pokemon to reverse sweep when they are losing 5-1. And again, I know there's ways to counter it. Bulky resistances, Encore, your own priority such as Thunderclap and Iron Valiant. But the thing about Kingambit is that he just creates problems. I don't appreciate it when offensive Pokemon are this over-centralizing. Many times letting Kingambit set a single sword stance can feel like an instant game over. I don't like it. Screw him.
Mom, can you give me money for burger?
So Gliscor is actually a really fun and different offensive threat. Since it's always poisoned, thanks to its Toxic Orb and Poison Heal ability, it can be status with Burn or Paralysis, some of the premier ways to stop sweepers. With access to Sword Stance and coverage in Earthquake and a boosted Facade, it hits very hard, and you even have Knockoff for some nice neutral and disruptive coverage. It isn't super fast, but it's fast enough to outspeed defensive Pokemon, and it's naturally bulky to take some hits from some of the faster offensive threats. At the same time, you can actually deal with him fairly well, since his HP and special defense aren't the greatest, and even some powerful neutral special hits can one-hit KO him. So yeah, it feels like you can actually deal with it, but at the same time it's really fun building around him to try and remove some of his checks to get that sweep. Gliscor is quite a nice and unique boost sweeper, isn't he? Well, sadly, this isn't really the reason he is OU. Defensive Gliscor is a little annoying bitch, with what seems infinite healing, a bunch of really good tools such as Spikes, Toxic, Knockoff and U-Turn, and a Protect that gets so much value each time it uses it. Gliscor is a really bothersome asshole to deal with, and don't even get me started on Terra.
But I personally don't believe that. I think this Pokemon's name is Great Neck.
I'll keep it short for this one. Everything I said for Kingambit applies the same way here, except not as bad. Since Raging Bolt version of Sucker Punch is electric type, it feels like you can actually deal with it with a faster, strong ground type, such as Landorus, Great Tusk, or even Iron Treads. Still, the immediate value you get out of Booster Energy special attack boosted Raging Bolt is kinda silly. Nothing can quite switch on him, making it a very prediction reliant matchup, especially in the way it abuses Terra.
No. Wait.
They want me to fight the chicken?
Chicken jockey.
That was D tier. Mostly all the annoying defensive walls, those that I just find unsatisfying to use, and 2 overtuned threats. Let's get on to C tier, with number 30, Moltres. I don't have much to say about Moltres honestly. I don't mind him too much, but he just feels sort of uninteresting and like a worse Zapdos. They both are tank-ish flying types with good special attack, both with access to Roost, both needing boots to function, and they both severely punish contact moves. Except Zapdos does so by applying Paralysis and Moltres does so by applying Burns. But Zapdos just feels a lot more satisfying, with better moves, a better typing, and some better stats. I know Moltres does some stuff better, like countering Great Tusk and walling Rillaboom, and Burn can be more valuable against some Pokemon, but I don't know. Moltres is just kind of whatever, but like I said, I don't really mind him. Just a warning, this is probably my most casual take yet when it comes to any of these Pokemon, so take it with a grain of salt. So, what is my problem with Landorus Tyrian? I don't like that a legendary with such versatility is legal in standard play. Okay, that's pretty much it.
But a dog.
Okay, fine, I'll explain a little further, but quite honestly, that is the crux of it. I warned you guys to take it with a grain of salt. Landorus T, even considering that some of its souls have been cut over the years, is a Pokemon that can really do anything and everything, and in that sense, it's sort of fun to build with, since it has so much roll compression and is easy to fit on any team. And also in that sense, it's a healthy metagame presence, since it can be a counter to a lot of different strategies. That is the same reason I don't like facing it. Landorus Tyrian can be such a frustrating Pokemon to deal with, since it has such solid stats and so much versatility in its moveset and builds that it's really hard to predict it. I did bump it a little bit during the making of this list, because in Gen 9 it feels the most manageable it has ever been. Like I said, very casual take. I know competitive players love this guy, and I'd be surprised if any of them are still watching after this entry. Oh well, moving on.
Butter dog. The dog with the butter. Butter dog. I got the butter on him.
Yeah, I dislike a legendary like Landorus T being in standard play, but a fucking box legendary? Oh baby, you know that I really dislike that. So yeah, my issues with Samacenta are mostly on principle. It's kind of fucked up to see something with these insane stats in OU. That being said, its move pool is indeed really limited and there's a number of ways of dealing with him. If it didn't have the insane stats of a box legendary, I'd probably enjoy it a lot more on the metagame, but it's fine honestly. I've learned to live with it. Let's move on to number 29, and B tier. Oh, Ting Lu, you asshole. So Ting Lu, despite its limited move pool and no good healing, can be one of the worst things you can see on the opposing team. It really is this kind of annoying blocky block of stats. Do you get it? Because its design is really blocky and with his ability, he even becomes tanky on the special side. There's nothing more frustrating than having your beautiful boost sweeper get whirlwind away, or seeing your huge wall breaking move like Draco Meteor do almost no damage. That being said, when using it, we're wielding those ugly boost sweepers away and taking almost no damage from huge wall breaking moves like Draco Meteor is really satisfying. So yeah, Ting Lu is the defensive equivalent of clicking big damage moves with insane offensive threats, but unlike some other defensive block of stats like Blissey, it feels somewhat more proactive with spikes for hazards, whirlwind for momentum and stopping those boost sweepers, and Earthquake and Ruination for solid damage. So yeah, he's annoying, but I also like his blocky ass.
I don't know if SpongeBob is dead or alive until I watch inside the box.
So, similar to Samacenta, I sometimes have a moral issue with seeing this guy in standard play, but also I don't mind him as much for a couple of reasons. First of all, current stats are those of a semi-bulky mixed attacker, and just because of the min-max hell that Gen 9 is, Kyurem already has a pretty uphill battle, Pressure is a nothing ability, and Dragonize is also a pretty bad typing. That being said, what I like and dislike the most about Kyurem is how versatile it is, in its moveset, item usage, and Terra types. Kyurem can be really fun to build with so many sets to choose from and making it so he can fit different offensive roles on your team. But at the same time, when facing against him, that same versatility can feel very hard to deal with, and a very prediction heavy matchup. If you don't guess the correct set and give him a single turn, it can sometimes feel like an instant game over. And the big problem with Kyurem is that there isn't really a single counter to all of his sets, making it a messy presence on the metagame. So yeah, fun to use, but it's the dealing with him part that doesn't feel great.
Fly me to the moon.
Despite the fact that it is one of the ugliest creatures I have the displeasure of seeing, I do enjoy Enamorus competitively. It is quite fun to use, since it's a solid late game cleaner and with a choice scarf it's a very good form of speed control, but it also doesn't feel cheap. You can't just bring this guy whenever and just click moves and everything dies. Because of its slow defenses and weakness to rocks, it feels very exploitable, so you actually have to support it to truly exploit its potential. And it also feels very manageable when on the opposing team, while at the same time a threat you have to be aware of. A good presence on the metagame, I like it.
Or you can trade it all in for what's in this box.
The box! The box!
Hell yeah, such a cool dude. I love how they took a really great starter and somehow made its design even better. Oh wait, wrong ranking. Competitively, Samur's Hisui is pretty fun, even if it is somewhat one-dimensional. It really just clicks attacks, usually one of these 4, maybe one of these 3. That being said, I really like how it makes use of different items, making it hard to predict which one it will be, especially between these two, and making the mind games when facing it quite entertaining. Ceaseless Edge really is its main thing though, a quite honestly broken move. I love how it turns him into this ultra-aggressive spiker, but also because of its not insane stats, it feels very manageable. I quite like it. In the insanely power-cut metagame that Gen 9 OU is, where everything is min-maxed to the extreme, where powerful sweepers are better than ever thanks to Terra, It's just really nice to see a Gen 1 Pokemon with these crappy stats succeed. But that's the thing about Clefable, despite its pretty low to average stats, it is so fundamentally solid, so well designed in all other aspects that it just functions so well. Hell, if anything, the poor stats are the only reason it feels balanced. With a very good mono fairy type, an incredible diverse move pool both defensively and offensively, and 2 great abilities, it truly feels like Clefable can do it all. You can be a bit of a sweeper with Calm Mind and Life Orb, you can be a full-on utility Pokemon, you can be a defensive wall with Cosmic Power, or even a little bit of everything. I also love the mind games that can occur with both abilities. With heavy duty boots, you can fake Magic Guard, while you are actually unaware, and stop sweepers who think they'll be able to break through Clefable with enough boosts. It's not higher because it does feel somewhat slow paced, and I prefer more fast paced Pokemon, but really cool nonetheless. Sometimes the Pokemon I appreciate are these beautifully complex ones with a lot of versatility and different tools to work with. They shine despite maybe their weak stats, like the previously discussed Clefable. Sometimes the Pokemon I appreciate is Darkrai, which is the complete opposite of that. Darkrai comes in and clicks attacking moves. At most he carries Will-O-Wisp, maybe he is a bit of a sweeper with Nasty Blood, but you know, sometimes the pleasure really comes from clicking moves, as if you were just playing the mainline games. Darkrai is basic as fuck, but he is also fun. Weavile honestly is kind of physical attacker Darkrai, with a similar typing, similar type coverage, the same speed tier, and sword stance instead of Nasty Blood. I personally view them as very similar. That said, beyond the physical versus special attack, there's the key difference that while Weavile feels slightly better offensively, he is also much worse defensively, making me enjoy it a tad more than Darkrai. But yeah, really similar fellas.
Mom, mommy dead.
Honestly, my second favorite hazard control of the metagame. Really, most of the reason I appreciate Hatterene presence in OU is because of its magic bounce ability. It is one of the most satisfying ways to control hazards, not only stopping them, but also getting them onto the other side. At the same time, it feels super manageable to deal with. If you see a Hatterene on the opposing team, you instantly know it's got magic bounce, and you become much more careful and wary of clicking hazards, or you even try to find a way to successfully eliminate it, which is also very manageable, since Hatterene defensive stats are nothing insane. I also like some of its other tools, like Nuzzle and Healing Wish, and I particularly enjoy how it can be built to be a slow, bulky sweeper with Calm Mind, though it is somewhat hard to actually achieve that. I'll admit, most of the appeal for me comes with how well Magic Bounce suits this Pokemon, but I do like some of the other stuff it has. Cool Gal. Cool Spiky Bird.
I found there was.
Oh right, this is a real video, I actually have to say stuff. I really enjoy Zapdos' presence in the metagame as a defensive Pokemon that's actually proactive. Zapdos doesn't just sit there and take hits, he actually attacks. That is cool as hell. I like how good he is coming into physical threats and U-turn pivoters, punishing with static. But also since he isn't just a block of stats who can take any hit, you actually have to use him carefully. On the flip side, I appreciate facing against it, since it forces you to actually think of spamming pivoting moves, such as Flip Turn and especially U-turn, being a little bit of counterplay to those. I also like since it's quite bulky, it reduces the feeling of randomness that a lot of his tools, such as Hurricane, Static and Discharge Paralysis can have. There are times that using it or facing against it can feel like a little bit of a coin flip, but it is certainly one of the better instances of RNG in Pokemon.
I found there was, within me, an invincible we're so back.
So this part was written before the ban, and I'm not changing it? Okay, that's it, bye. I debated myself about putting Roaring Moon so high up on this list. On one hand, and many times it feels like an overbearing presence, and an unhealthy addition to the metagame. Roaring Moon outspeeds the whole metagame after one Dragon Dance, and with its solid typing of Dark Dragon, it isn't hard to find opportunities to get that Dragon Dance up. With the Dragon Dance attack boost and Booster Energy attack boost, and some very good attacks in Acrobatics, Knockoff and Earthquake, he can threaten almost the whole tier. The very few things that can sort of withstand it, like Anawar Dondozo and Corviknight, can't really threaten it back, even if they're running Body Press, since Roaring Moon can just Terastallize into a flying type, and with its decent bulk and solid typing, it can shrug off well enough the more prominent priority users of the tier, such as King Gambit, Rillaboom, Extreme Speed Dragonite, and Raging Bolt. So yeah, after that single Dragon Dance, and many times it can feel as the battle is over, especially if you've already used your Terra. As of this recording, Roaring Moon is being suspect tested, and if it does get banned to Ubers, I would fully understand it. With all of that being said, On the other hand, using Dragon Dance 1 and then just clicking big damage moves feels so goddamn satisfying. I don't care if it's unbalanced, the serotonin I get from successfully sweeping an entire team with very little effort is truly unmatched. You barely need support like other sweepers, just get in at that convenient time, click Dragon Dance and boom, the battle is over. When I use Roaring Moon, I feel like a 10-year-old using the over-level box legendary to sweep the Elite Four, and I love it.
I think you're better than me.
I am better than you.
Dollar Store great task honestly, but handles Raging Ball a lot better, and that's pretty cool. Beyond that, what I appreciate the most about Iron Threads is its sheer versatility, and not just in regards to its moveset, but also the way people distribute his IVs. He can be a fast suicide lead, a bulky special wall with Assault Vest, a general utility, fast Pokemon, or he can even use his special attack to catch people off guard, especially on the late game. But in some ways, Iron Thread's versatility is also its downfall, because while he can do a lot of things, I also feel like he isn't the best in any of them, making him a bit of a jack of all trades, without excelling in any of them. Still, cool down fan guy. Shout out to him for being a Miraidon answer when that was still legal in Ubers.
ほう、向かってくるのか。逃げずにこのディオに近づいてくるのか。
近づかなきゃ、てめえをぶちのめせないんでな。
He's so ugly! I love him!
While Walking Wake can sometimes feel a little bit overwhelming with its raw power, it is also one of the most fun wall breakers in the metagame, and such a cool Pokemon to fit into a Sun team. Sun gained a bunch of new worthy members in Gen 9 thanks to the past Paradox Pokemon, but it had always truly lacked a good water type. And it makes sense, water gets nerfed in Sun, why would you use water types? So I just really love the concept of a water type whose water type moves actually get boosted by the sun. And when the occasional rain team comes around, it doesn't mind it, it also gets boosted by that weather. Even out of water, it's just a really satisfying to use as a strong wall breaker with choice specs and a really solid speed. Cool ugly dinosaur.
Monkey.
Rillaboom is yet another kind of mindless Pokemon, spamming its really strong priority, but with just an okay typing of Mono Grass, and its priority being Grass type, it feels like a King Gambit that was actually somewhat balanced. Because while yeah, a Rillaboom priority can be extremely powerful, with Grassy Glide being capable of one-shotting a lot of important offensive Pokemon, especially with Terra Grass, there's also very clear checks in the metagames such as Corviknight, Iron Moth, Zapdos and Moltres, and since Rillaboom really wants to use Choice Band to enhance his priority, it can be easily punished by a boost sweeper that resists Grass, and then uses the opportunity to set up, such as Dragonite, Kyurem, or even Iron Crown. So yeah, I've actually come full circle and think this guy is actually relatively balanced. He is also so much fun to use. There's really no other wall breaker as fun as Rillaboom in my opinion, precisely because its mono grass type isn't enough to break through everything. You actually have to build the precise moment for Rillaboom to come in and clean up by eliminating its checks. And it's not easy, since there are quite a few and they are common. But if you achieve it, damn, it is so satisfying.
Hey, can I get a what?
My enjoyment of Iron Moth greatly improves by the fact that Volcarona is now banned, because let's face it, Iron Moth is just a dollar store Volcarona. It has some stuff to make it different though, mainly the booster energy boost. What I really love about that in Iron Moth is how with the special attack boost it becomes a really scary wall breaker, and with the speed boost it becomes a really good late game cleaner, one that almost nothing can outspeed. I also really appreciate when players get a little bit more crafty and less straightforward with this guy, running stuff like Substitute or even Morning Sun. Cool Moth! I really love it when Pokemon with crappy stats succeed in competitive, and Tinkaton is such a good representation of that, because it makes up for its crappy stats with a great typing, 2 good abilities to choose from, and a nice move pool. Hell yeah, Tinkaton! You set the Stealth Rock in the face of Hatterene and paralyze that little gold bitch. And if you feel like those kills are too specific, ruin every Rapid Spinner life when they pop your balloon by stealing their shit. I really appreciate how Tinkaton can add so much value to a team while also being very manageable. Hell yeah, shout out to Tinkaton.
And don't underestimate the importance of body language.
I'm so glad Tapu Fini isn't in the game, because I like Primarina so much more as a water fairy type. With a stat spread that feels much more reasonable but also much more aggressive and proactive, Primarina is one of my favorite walls in this metagame. Because with its beautiful typing and a really solid special defense, it is such a good special wall, even more so with an Assault Vest. But it also feels very manageable, since its physical bulk is rather bad and is greatly banished by hazards. What I really like about Primarina as a wall is that it has sunset variety too. I already mentioned the easier to use Assault Vest, but with Substitute and Calm Mind, you can also compress its roll into a win condition, one that can actually be really impossible to stop if you allow it to set up. In this channel, we hate Tapu Fini, all my homies love Primarina. Hell yeah, I love my Gen 1 Chunky Boy being OU in the most power-crept metagame ever. Even without good flying stuff, Dragonite rises as one of the scariest boost sweepers in Gen 9. With boots, it guarantees to have its multi-scale intact, and a lot of the times, one turn for boosting and the battle is pretty much over. With extreme speed to outer priority users who may try to beat him, Dragonite can become an unstoppable force. At the same time, it does feel balanced, with some limited coverage and prominent checks in the metagame. I like it, but the reason Dragonite is so far up on this list isn't because of the boot set. While less viable, my favorite Dragonite set is the same attacks and same idea, but with a weakness policy instead. Hell yeah baby, let's go! While it really needs that hazard control support from teammates, there's nothing more satisfying than taking a super effective hit at full health, Dragon Dancing once in the same turn, and that's pretty much it. Game over.
But me personally, I don't see a crown anywhere. This is Iron Brian.
That was B tier. Let's get into A tier, with number 12, Iron Crown. A really stupid design, but a really cool Pokemon competitively. Iron Crown has had an interesting career. Most people shrugging it off at first. It isn't as min-max as other Pokemon in the power-crept Gen 9 metagame, so at first it isn't obviously insane as some of them, and while Tachyon Cutter is a good signature move, it isn't nearly as broken as some of the other signature moves from Paradox Pokemon, like Hydro Steam and Thunderclap. But Iron Crown has proven to be a very solid Pokemon, as a very good anti-lead to hyper-offense teams who use stuff like Ribombee and Glimmora, as a really nice offensively bulky pivot with Ball Switch and Assault Vest, as a late game cleaner with booster energy speed, and maybe the most inconsistent set of his, but also my favorite, as a stored power sweeper. With weakness policy, calm mind, agility, and even iron defense, he can become extremely scary and unstoppable if you are able to eliminate Kingambit. And I'm all for strategies that eliminate Kingambit, but despite the fact that it can be extremely solid or one of the scariest sweepers ever, with a typing that's good but also has notable weaknesses in Ground, Ghost, and Dark, and a modest stat distribution for Gen 9 standards, Iron Crown feels very manageable. Competitively speaking, my favorite out of the 3 Swords of Justice robots, even though that isn't saying much.
Bird.
This is like Skarmory if Skarmory was actually fun to use. Corviknight is such a beautiful defensive Pokemon, mainly because its stats are so average. Defense and HP are pretty solid, but they aren't nearly as high as the ones you see in some of the more annoying defensive Pokemon, like Toxapex, Dondozo, or Garganacl, and that's because at the end of the day, Corviknight really is just an early game bird, but with a great typing, really nice tools like Roost, Defog, and U-Turn, Corviknight becomes a very fun Pokemon to play with and against. My favorite set is Iron Defense plus Body Press, because even though it makes it unstoppable by physical attackers and if you don't have a Ghost, it's also very reasonable to deal with special attackers, unlike the other prominent Body Press guy in the tier. Corviknight is kind of a perfect utility wall. I love him. I'll be completely honest, I really don't like Defog. I think it is a boring way to get rid of hazards that mostly benefits slower and more passive teams. What I don't like about it is how safe of a click it is. Unlike Rapid Spin that can be blocked, losing you your momentum, or punished by contact effects like Rocky Helmet or Static. So, I really love that Defog gets fucked thanks to Gholdengo. I preferred in early generations when the only way to remove hazards is Rapid Spin, and Ghosts are there to block it. So I really like how Gholdengo makes the metagame shift to the old way again. Besides his hazard blocking abilities, I love his set variety. Speed control with Choice Scarf, bulky sweeper with Nasty Blood and 3 moves, offensive support with Thunder Wave, Hex and Recover, he's really cool. But the thing about Gholdengo is that despite its very stuled and overpowered ability, I also feel he's very manageable. Ghost Steel typing is incredible, but it's also exploitable, with weaknesses to Ground, Fire, Ghost and Dark. All really common attacking types. And he's bulky, but he's not insanely bulky, so he's not leaving most tough super effective attacks of these types. And he's also sort of fast, but not super fast, so most of your attackers will outspeed him if he isn't scarfed. I honestly really likes what he brings to the metagame. Makey Rainy is broken though, they kind of went a little bit too far in there. Hell yeah, I love slow pivots, all my homies love slow pivots. Slowking Galar is probably my favorite regenerator Pokemon ever. This is such a great team player, enabling powerful offensive threats with shield reception, with the more obvious effect of safely bringing them in by being a slow pivot, but also sometimes by resetting weather and crippling the enemy team. What I really like about Glowking as a regenerator wall is that with his special attack stat, he can also be a lot more aggressive and proactive when using it, making it less one-dimensional. You can even go Assault Vest, enhancing its bulk and aggressiveness at the cost of the slow pivot. On the other hand, he also feels very manageable to deal with as opposed to other Regenerator Pokemon. I'm looking at you, you asshole. Because its bulk is good, but not insane, so it's not like he'll be healing all the damage it takes each time it switches. I adore this headcrab guy. Honestly, my favorite Sticky Web setter in all of Pokemon history. Such a discovery. With a great ability, really solid bulk, especially on the special side, and the really cool combination of Endure, Endeavor, and Custard Berry, Araquanid is a Sticky Web setter that can actually get a lot of value later in the game. You know, it isn't just set your Sticky Web and then die. You can actually use it to KO some of the more prominent ground types in the meta, like Landorus T and Great Tusk, since neither of them match well into Araquanid. Thanks to its bulk, you can use it to force out special attackers. Endure plus Endeavor is a great way to chip down Boost Sweepers into a weak priority move if the situation turns so dire, and Water Bubble is a great way to absorb Will-O-Wisp. While very counterable and easy to play around, it's great to see a Sticky Web setter that does something very different. Cool Spidey guy.
This thing's stats, kinda balls. I don't know if he really got that dog in him. I guess got that cat in him.
Despite not being a four-legged cat as it should have been, Meowscarada is a really fun competitive Pokemon in Gen 9 OU. It's very reminiscent of Greninja, with a similar speed tier, a similar typing, and also access to protein, but personally I prefer it with some better coverage and a really solid move pool that includes U-turn and knockoff, that makes it work both as an offensive threat and also a utility pivot. The boot sets are cool, but I think there's another fairy starter that is better in that role and kind of outclasses it. Where Meowscarada really shines is as a speed control pivoter with Choice Scarf. Choice items in general are a really great fit for protein Pokemon, since they can get the choice boost and the step boost on all moves, but Choice Scarf Meowscarada is my favorite way to speed control in this metagame. You literally outspeed everything, including the speed boosted Paradox Pokemon such as Iron Valiant, Roaring Moon, Iron Moth, and Walking Wake, and other prominent Scarfers such as Goldengo and Landorus T, and of course, you outspeed Dragapult. You also get to outspeed Boost Sweepers, some of them even after 2 speed boosts. Flower Trick is just really good all around, and nice ways to bypass Iron Defense's Garganacl. U-turn and knockoff are always free clicks, and Triple Axel is beautiful in this metagame, making Meowscarada really good into hyper offense sash leads such as Glimora and Ribombee, and also the best way to stop a Dragonite sweep right in its track. I really love this guy. I still wish he wasn't a fairy bipedal. Has it completely ruined the Rain archetype for everyone else? Yes. Is Ivy Cudgel having increased crit chance complete bullshit? Yes. Is it kind of ridiculous how it gets a special defense boost beside the stat boost when terastallizing? Yes. Do I still love her? Yes. Ogerpon Wellspring sure seems overtuned in some ways and it can feel over-centralizing, but damn. I just really love using it. It may be my favorite physical sweeper in years, because while it is really good, I actually think it is relatively manageable, with a typing that has quite a bit of weaknesses, a speed tier that is good but also not insane, being outsped by a lot of other stuff, and vulnerable to all the priority in the tier. And since it can use another item, you never have to worry about her being something other than the Swords Dance set, making it predictable and easy to form a game plan to counter it. I really like her with Sticky Web support, making that just good speed stat into just the right amount to outspeed and kill everything after a Swords Dance. Good stuff.
Well, are you better than me?
Well, I never met you, but yes.
The best hazard control in history, hell yeah. There really is a lot I like about Cinderace, but Core Change is my favorite thing. Not gonna lie, it's kind of busted. I complained before about how Defog is such a free click, when Core Change is even more of a better, freer click, but what I think I like so much about this move is the fact that it's specifically on Cinderace and Cinderace alone. Cinderace isn't insanely frail, but it's not bulky by any means either, and I just think it's a great balance design to put such a great utility option in such an offensive Pokemon. Especially since it gives him so much dimensionality, even though it perfectly can be a straight attacker with Libero, a great stab move in Fireball, and nice coverage in Sucker Punch and High Jump Kick, and even U-turn for pivoting. Cinderace is one of those that feels like such a staple of the metagame, with so many strong attributes, but also very manageable. I love it. I hate that it looks like a firefighting Pokemon though.
Are you a girl?
No.
Are you a boy?
No.
I'm a robot.
Is it a Swords Dance Sweeper, a Calm Mind Sweeper, a Choice Scarfer, a Choice Band or Specs Breaker, an Expert Belt or Life Orb All-Out Mixed Attacker? Does it have Encore? Is it Terra Electric or Terra Fire or Terra Steel? Does it carry Knockoff or does it carry Shadow Ball to hit Slowking Galar? That's right, baby, it's literally all of them until you actually face it. It's the one and only Iron Valiant, baby! Woo, let's go! The best Future Paradox Pokemon, both in design and competitively. I really love what Iron Valiant brings into the metagame. I already talked about its sheer versatility, but what I love about it compared to other versatile Pokemon is that it feels a lot more manageable, since because of its poor bulk, it's always weak to the same thing, priority. But it is also quite resistant to the most important priority, Sucker Punch, making it the best King Gambit counter. Not just because of its typing, but because unlike other checks like Great Task, you don't actually have to risk Iron Valiant by bringing him in early. He is mostly a late game cleaner, and a perfect one at that if you're able to eliminate the enemy priority. I just really like every set this guy has, both using it and facing against it. Great stuff.
Chunky boy! Chocolate pillow friend! Friend-shaped!
We made it to S tier and the top 3. These are not only my favorite Pokemon of this metagame, but some of my favorite competitive Pokemon ever. And let's kick it off with a guy that isn't even OU anymore and hasn't been for a long time, but I don't care about that. That's right, it's my boy Clodsire. Hell yeah, I love Clodsire. Oh my god, I love him! Clodsire is a really fun special wall, because unlike Blissey, it can actually do stuff. It has all the hazards. It has Toxic to apply pressure, and with Stab Earthquake, even with his poor attack stat, with his bulk he can leave multiple attacks and threaten the Steel and Poison types attempting to come in his Toxics. But what really makes Clodsire shine is its abilities, Water Absorb and Unaware. They are both great abilities on their own, but they also allow for Clodsire to play different roles in different teams, and they also make up for a lot of gaming. A Clodsire just came into your Ogerpon. Do you go for a Grass type move and risk knock one-shotting, since your Swords Dance is useless on an Unaware Pokemon? Or do you go for a Water move and risk Water Absorb, allowing in both cases for Clodsire to Toxic you? Oh yeah baby, mind games, I love Clodsire. Nowadays you mostly see him in stall teams, which is so wrong, because I feel like he's such a good fit on balanced teams as well, being a nice special wall, a way to shut down Boost Sweepers with Unaware and Toxic, and a way to absorb Toxic for your own offensive threats. All of that's great and all, but I haven't talked about my favorite Clodsire set ever, invented by me. It is also really cheap, but I love it. Okay, so Leftovers and Unaware, pretty normal. A Stealth Rock, Recover, Toxic, okay, pretty standard. What's that? A physically defensive Clodsire? That's weird. What's the last move? Counter? That's right baby, this is my favorite Clodsire. Maybe not the best use for him, and it also gets wrecked by Taunt, but it allowed for such great surprise moments against more offensive teams, and it served as a great one-time insurance against physical Boost Sweepers I couldn't handle otherwise. It isn't as useful nowadays that some of said Boost Sweepers have gotten banned, but with Counter, as long as Clodsire was over 80% health, it could survive and then kill all of the following relevant Pokemon. Dragonite after an Earthquake, non-Proto boosted attack Great Task after a Headlong Rush or an Earthquake, non-Proto boosted attack Roaring Moon after any move, Gouging Fire after any move, Gliscor after Earthquake, Iron Threads after Earthquake, a 5 Fallen King Gambit after Iron Head or Kowtow Cliff, Ogerpon Wellspring after Power Whip or Ivy Gudgel. I actually needed to be at full health for that one, but shut up. Landorus T after Earthquake, and many others. And you may be thinking that's kind of short-term value, but not really, since with its other moves it could still function as a soft check to special attackers and other important threats like Iron Valiant and Samacenta, and if it needed to be at full health to click counter against a physical threat later, with enough gaming, I could use Recover to get it back to full. Physical Clodsire with counter is peak gaming potential, and I won't hear otherwise. I love him, this is the best set I ever created, end of the discussion.
Ring ring! Hello, what's that? What do you mean they hit the second tower?
That was a really long entry. I really love Clodsire. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum of competitive design, we have Dragapult, the fastest amazing guy. I really think Dragapult is an insanely well designed competitive Pokemon. Ghost Dragon is a beautiful typing, especially to block Rapid Spin, and I love how just by his speed stat he can be a soft check to slower sweepers, such as Ogerpon, Weavile and Darkrai. Like it won't be enough to get the Nasty Blood or Swords Dance up, you also have to eliminate this guy. You can also use Clear Body to protect yourself against Sticky Web variants, but I also think Dragapult is really well balanced, because despite his monstrous speed, his offensive power isn't as crazy. Like yes, he does have a 120 base attack, but kind of a lackluster physical move pool. And he does have a very strong special move pool, but a very modest 100 base special attack. It really is great design, because it doesn't make him overbearing, while also giving him a lot of versatility and possible roles to play with. It can be a fast people supporting Pokemon with U-Turn, Will-O-Wisp and a mixed attacking set. It can be a Dragon Dance Sweeper, but that one kind of forces you to Terra Ghost to have something to hit Steels and Fairies well. And it can be both a special and a physical breaker with the choice items, enhanced by the ability Infiltrator. But since it needs the choice item to truly be threatening, you can punish it greatly, and it is one of those wall breakers that actually requires you to be careful to use. Such a beautifully designed pseudo-legendary. I love this jet plane dude.
We are number one!
This is kind of a boring number 1, since he has actually been number 1 throughout most of this metagame, but oh well, what you gonna do? Deny perfection? Great Tusk is truly my favorite among all the other solid bulky ground types. He's like Landorus T, if I actually liked Landorus T. I mean, what can I really say about this guy? Do you want utility? Boom! Stealth Rock, Rapid Spin, Knockoff, even Endeavor for some reason. Do you want all-out offense? Boom! Headlong Rash, Close Combat, Ice Spinner, Supercell Slam. Do you want a tankier utility version? Boom! Defense IVs and fucking Body Press. Do you want a sweeper? Boom! Bulk Up, Headlong Rash, Ice Spinner, Supercell Slam and Speed Proto Boost. Hell, I even saw one that runs Attack Proto Boost, Rapid Spin and fucking Ghost Terra Blast. That one was crazy, it whooped my ass. I've even seen it used with a goddamn Assault Vest to actually stomach special hits. This guy's crazy. It's just really great when the most used Pokemon in a metagame isn't an over-centralizing threat, but instead, a beautiful bulky ground type that can do so much. I love you, Great Tusk. It even is a counter for King Gambit, hell yeah, fuck King Gambit. So, that's the list. Oh boy, I have fun making that video. I can't wait to get comments about how wrong I am. For the 30 people that subscribed after that first video, yes, I do plan on making more, so bear with me. For the rest of you, subscribe, like, and all that jazz. You already know. Okay guys, have a good one.